When I was 14, my friend Kayla invited a few of us to sleep over at her house on a Friday night in late October. It was one of those cold nights where the air outside felt wet, and every sound carried farther than it should have. Her parents were leaving for the night to go to some anniversary party in the next town over, which meant we'd have the house to ourselves until the next morning. There were 5 of us total. Me, Kayla, her cousin Jenna, our friend Tori, and this girl Melissa who had just transferred to our school a few weeks earlier. Melissa was nice, but quiet in a way that made it hard to know what she was thinking. She mostly smiled when people talked to her and answered in short sentences. Kayla's house sat near the edge of a wooded neighborhood. It wasn't deep in the middle of nowhere or anything, but the backyard ended at a line of tall trees, and beyond that there was nothing but a stretch of dark woods and an old service road hardly anyone used anymore. I remember getting there around 6 in the evening. The sun was already going down, and the whole sky had that dim gray-orange look that only lasts about 10 minutes before everything turns black. Kayla's mom was making us frozen pizzas before they left. "Doors stay locked," she told us more than once. "And do not open the back door at night. I'm serious." Kayla rolled her eyes. "Mom, we're not 5. "I know," her mom said. "That's exactly why I'm saying it." Her dad laughed from the hallway while putting on his coat. "She watched one true crime documentary and now she thinks everyone's about to get kidnapped." But even though he joked, I noticed he checked the back door himself before they left. He made sure it was locked, then looked through the glass panel into the yard for a second longer than felt normal. At the time, I didn't think much of it. Once they pulled out of the driveway, the whole mood changed. We got louder. We dragged blankets and pillows into the living room. Kayla turned on string lights she'd hung around the windows. Tori connected her phone to a speaker and played music while Jenna dumped candy and chips all over the coffee table. For the first couple hours, it felt like a normal sleepover. We ate too much pizza, took stupid pictures, and watched videos that were supposed to be scary but really weren't. Melissa barely touched her food, which Kayla noticed. "You okay?" Kayla asked her. Melissa nodded. "Yeah. I just don't eat much at night." Tori laughed. "That's actually insane. Night is when all the best food happens." Melissa smiled a little, but it didn't reach her eyes. At around 9, the conversation drifted into ghost stories and local rumors the way it always did when a bunch of teenagers were trying to scare each other. Jenna told us about a bridge nearby where people said you could hear crying under it after midnight. Tori brought up some old story about a woman who wandered the service road behind Kayla's neighborhood after dark. Kayla groaned. "My brother used to tell me that one when I was little. The woman with no face." "No, not that version," Tori said. "The one I heard was about a lady who'd lost her kid in the woods. She'd knock on back doors and ask if anyone had seen him." Melissa, who had been staring into her soda can, looked up when Tori said that. "Don't," she said quietly. The room got still for a second. Kayla laughed a little. "What?" Melissa shook her head. "Nothing. Just don't tell that one." I remember looking at her and feeling this strange little chill. Not because of what she said, but because of the way she said it. Like it wasn't just a story to her. Tori smirked. "Why? You scared?" Melissa looked toward the dark window beside the TV. "I just hate stories about people at the door." Nobody really knew how to respond to that, so Kayla clapped her hands and said, "Okay, new topic. Truth or dare?" That got everyone moving again. For the next hour, things felt normal. We were laughing, daring each other to do embarrassing stuff, digging through candy wrappers, and talking over each other. But every now and then, I'd catch Melissa glancing toward the back of the house. Not the front door. The back. Around 10:30, Kayla got up to make popcorn. I followed her into the kitchen because I wanted water. Her kitchen faced the backyard through a set of sliding glass doors with vertical blinds over them. Most of the blinds were shut, but one slat near the middle was twisted just enough that you could see a strip of the yard. As Kayla shoved a popcorn bag into the microwave, I wandered over and peeked through the opening. The yard was dark except for the weak yellow light above the back steps. Beyond that, the grass faded into shadow, then into the black wall of trees. For a second, I thought I saw something near the tree line. Not a person exactly. More like a shape. I leaned closer. "What are you doing?" Kayla asked. "I thought I saw someone." She came over beside me and looked out. "Probably a tree." "I don't know." She shrugged, but I could tell she didn't love the idea either. "There's a fence back there. No one would just be standing in our yard." Right as she said it, the microwave beeped so loud I jumped. Kayla laughed at me. "You're already scaring yourself." Maybe I was. We brought the popcorn back into the living room, and the others wanted to start a movie. Kayla picked some old horror movie, and we turned off most of the lights except for the TV and the string lights by the window. That was when the first weird thing happened. Maybe 15 minutes into the movie, there was a sound from somewhere in the house. A single knock. Not on the front door. It sounded deeper in the house than that. We all heard it. Tori muted the TV. "What was that?" Kayla sat up. "Probably pipes." Then it came again. 3 knocks this time. Slow. Thump. 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 The sound seemed to come from the back of the house. Nobody moved for a second. Then Jenna gave this nervous laugh. "Your pipes are knocking like a serial killer." Kayla forced a smile. "It's probably the back door shifting." "From what?" I asked. "No wind?" Melissa had gone pale. She was staring toward the hallway that led to the kitchen. "Don't answer it," she whispered. Tori frowned. "Answer what?" But then all of us heard it. Knocking. Clear this time. From the sliding glass door. 3 slow taps. Everyone froze. I could feel every tiny sound in the room suddenly get louder. The hum of the refrigerator from the kitchen. The faint hiss from the TV speakers. My own breathing. Kayla stood up first. "Sit down," Melissa said, louder this time. Kayla looked back at her. "It's probably my dad messing with us. Your parents wouldn't drive all the way back just to knock on the glass," I said. The knocking came again. 3 taps. Slow. Deliberate. Like whoever it was knew we were listening. Kayla took a few steps toward the hallway. "I'm just gonna look." Melissa stood up so fast her blanket slid to the floor. "No." There was real fear in her voice now. Not fake, not playful. Kayla stopped. "Melissa, what is your problem?" Melissa's eyes stayed fixed on the dark hallway. "Don't look outside. Just lock yourselves in here." Jenna let out this awkward little laugh. "You're making it way scarier." "I'm serious," Melissa said. The room went quiet again. Then, from the kitchen, we heard the blinds on the sliding doors shift. A soft plastic rattling sound. Like someone on the other side was running their fingers down them. Tori whispered, "Oh my God!" Kayla grabbed the fireplace poker from beside the TV stand and looked at all of us. "Stay here." She started down the hallway before anyone could stop her. I don't know why, but I followed her. Maybe because being left behind felt worse. Jenna came too, then Tori. Melissa stayed where she was for about 2 seconds, then ran after us. The kitchen was dark except for the stove clock and the dim light over the sink. The sliding door was at the far end. The blinds were still. Kayla slowly reached for the wall switch and turned on the backyard light. The yard lit up in a weak yellow wash. Nothing was there. No one on the patio. No one on the steps. No movement in the grass. We all stood there staring through the glass. "See?" Kayla said, though her voice wasn't confident anymore. "Nobody." Then Jenna pointed. "There." At first I didn't see it. Then I did. Beyond the yard, near the fence, standing halfway between the light and the trees, was a person. At least I thought it was a person. It was too dark to make out clearly, but it looked tall and thin, standing completely still. I felt the hair rise on my arms. Kayla whispered, "What the hell?" Tori stepped back first. Nope. Lock that." "It's already locked," Kayla said. Melissa had gone silent. I turned to look at her, and saw she was staring at that figure like she knew it. Kayla noticed too. "Melissa?" No answer. "Do you know them?" Melissa shook her head, but it was too fast. Too automatic. The figure didn't move. It just stood there near the fence, almost like it was waiting. Kayla grabbed her phone. "I'm calling my parents." She dialed and put it on speaker. Straight to voicemail. She tried her dad. Same thing. "Probably driving," Jenna said, but her voice shook. Tori said, "Call 911. "No," Melissa said immediately. All of us turned toward her. "Why not?" I asked. She swallowed hard. Because maybe it's just somebody messing around." "Somebody standing in your backyard in the dark is not messing around," Kayla snapped. She started dialing 911, but before she could press call, the figure moved. Not toward us. To the side. It drifted along the fence line until it disappeared behind the dark corner of the yard where the light didn't reach. And then it was gone. We waited for it to come back. It didn't. Kayla lowered the phone. "Okay. Everybody back to the living room. Now." This time nobody argued. We shut the kitchen light off, hurried back into the living room, and Kayla locked the hallway door that led toward the back of the house. I didn't even know that door had a lock before then. Tori sat cross-legged on the floor, holding a throw pillow against her chest like it would protect her. Jenna said what we were all thinking. "Was that actually a person?" Melissa still hadn't sat down. She was pacing now, rubbing her hands together. Kayla looked at her. "You know something." Melissa stopped moving. "No, I don't." "Then why were you acting weird before any of this happened?" Melissa looked close to tears. "Because I've seen someone outside a house before." Nobody said anything. She finally sat down, but right on the edge of the couch, like she was ready to spring up and run. "When I was 11, she said, "my mom and I stayed with my aunt for a few weeks. She lived off this old road outside town. One night there was knocking at the back door. The room felt colder. My aunt told us not to answer. She said people around there heard knocks sometimes. Not at the front door. Always the back." Jenna tried to smile. "Okay, but that's just some creepy local thing." Melissa shook her head. "No. Because my cousin looked outside." Nobody moved. Melissa's eyes were glossy now, fixed on nothing. "She said there was a woman standing in the yard. She looked normal except she was too still. My aunt made my cousin get away from the window and called the police. But when they came, nobody was there." Tori asked, barely above a whisper. "So what happened?" Melissa took a second before answering. "The next morning my aunt found footprints in the mud under the back window. And something else." What? Kayla asked. Melissa looked at her. A little handprint. On the outside of the glass? At kid height. I felt my stomach drop. Tori gave a soft laugh, but it sounded forced and thin. That's not funny. I'm not joking. Jenna folded her arms. Okay, but what does that have to do with this? Melissa was quiet for a few seconds. Then she said, My aunt told me there's always two. No one spoke. She said if you see one person in the yard, don't assume that's the one you need to be afraid of. I remember the silence after that more than anything. It felt like the whole room had stopped breathing. Then Tori said very softly, You really should have led with that. Kayla got up and turned on every light in the living room. For a while after that, nobody wanted to be alone. Not even to go to the bathroom. We all stuck together and checked our phones every few minutes. No service issue. Our phones worked fine. Still no response from Kayla's parents. At around 11:15, Kayla finally got through to her mom. The call lasted maybe 20 seconds. When she hung up, she looked annoyed but relieved. They're fine. They were at the venue and the music was too loud to hear their phones. They said they can come back if we're really freaked out. Tell them yes, Tori said immediately. Kayla hesitated. They've both been drinking. So I don't want them driving if they don't have to. That started a short argument. Tori wanted them home. Jenna said we were overreacting. I didn't know what I wanted. Melissa stayed quiet, staring at the front window now like she was listening for something. In the end, Kayla told her mom not to come back yet. That decision bothered me right away, but I didn't say anything. Around midnight, the tension had eased just enough that people started talking again. Nobody wanted the movie back on. The mood had changed too much for that. So we sat around and tried to act normal. Then the power went out. The whole house dropped into darkness in one instant. No TV glow. No kitchen clock. No string lights. Just black. Jenna screamed. Tori cursed. Someone knocked over a bowl and candy scattered across the floor. Kayla yelled, Everybody stay here! My eyes adjusted slowly, just enough to make out vague shapes in the room. And then, from the kitchen, came the sound of glass rattling. Not breaking. Shaking. Like someone was pulling at the sliding door. Hard. Kayla shouted, Oh my God! We all bolted at once, stumbling over pillows and each other. Melissa screamed, Upstairs! Upstairs! We ran for the stairs in a clumsy pack, half falling, grabbing the railing, slamming into walls in the dark. I could hear that rattling sound behind us, loud and violent now. The sliding door. Someone was trying to force it open. When we got upstairs, Kayla dragged us into her room and locked the door. We were all breathing hard, panicking, talking over each other. Call 911! I can't see my phone. Use the flashlight. Did they get in? Melissa was crying now. I told you not to look outside. Kayla found her phone and turned on the flashlight. In that white beam, all of us looked ghost pale and terrified. She called 911 with shaking hands. This time it connected immediately. I could hear the dispatcher's voice faintly through the speaker. Kayla was trying to talk but crying too hard. So I took the phone and explained as fast as I could. We were alone, someone was outside, trying to get in, power was out, we were upstairs. The dispatcher told us officers were on the way and to stay where we were. Then we heard a sound from downstairs. A slow creak. Then another. Footsteps. Not rushing. Walking. Inside the house. Every single one of us heard it. The room went dead silent except for our breathing. Step. 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 From the first floor hallway. Jenna covered her mouth with both hands. Tori whispered. No, no, no. Kayla looked at me with this expression I'll never forget. It was the look of somebody realizing the thing they were scared of was now much closer than they had hoped. The footsteps stopped. Then, after a few seconds, we heard something scrape along the downstairs wall. A dragging sound. Like someone running their hand across it while they walked. Melissa started shaking her head over and over. There's two, she kept whispering. There's two, there's two. The dispatcher was still on the phone asking questions, but I had stopped answering because I was listening too hard. The footsteps started again. This time on the stairs. Slow. One creak at a time. Something was coming up. The five of us backed into the farthest corner of Kayla's room. Kayla had the fireplace poker now. Tori was holding a lamp. Jenna was sobbing. Melissa had gone weirdly calm. We heard the stair steps creaking one after another until the sound reached the top landing. Then it stopped. A second later, the hallway floor outside the bedroom creaked. One step. Then another. Then silence right outside the door. Nobody breathed. There was no knocking. No voice. Just a presence standing on the other side. I remember staring at the doorknob, waiting for it to turn. It didn't. Instead, from somewhere lower in the house, we heard another sound. The back door. 3 slow knocks. The exact same rhythm as before. Every muscle in my body went cold. Because whoever was outside the bedroom door couldn't also be downstairs knocking. Melissa let out this tiny broken sound in her throat. There's two, she whispered again. Then the doorknob slowly twisted. Kayla lifted the poker. The knob turned all the way, but the lock held. For a second nothing happened. Then there were 3 soft knocks on the bedroom door. Almost polite. I thought I was going to throw up. Then, from behind us, Tori screamed. We all turned. Kayla's bedroom window. There was a face outside it. Not pressed right against the glass, but close enough for the flashlight beam to catch it. A woman. At least, it looked like a woman. Her hair hung down wet around her face. Her skin looked pale in the moonlight. But what I remember most was her expression. She was smiling. Not wide. Not dramatic. Just a small, calm smile, like she knew something we didn't. Jenna shrieked and dropped to the floor. Kayla swung the poker toward the window even though there was no way she could reach it. The face outside tilted slightly, then disappeared downward out of sight. At that exact moment, the bedroom door shook once from the outside. A hard slam. Melissa screamed now, too. All 5 of us were crying or shouting. The dispatcher on the phone kept saying officers were almost there. Almost there. Stay in the room. Stay on the line. The door shook again. Harder. Once. Twice. Then it stopped. And after that, for maybe 20 seconds, there was nothing. No footsteps. No knocking. No movement. That silence was somehow worse than all of it. Then we heard voices outside. Male voices. Shouting. Police. The house suddenly filled with noise. Heavy footsteps. Doors opening. Somebody yelling. Police department! Kayla ran to unlock the bedroom and the dispatcher shouted for us not to move, but it didn't matter. 2 officers were already at the top of the stairs with flashlights drawn. They got us downstairs and outside in less than a minute. Standing in the driveway under the flashing red and blue lights, wrapped in blankets from the squad car, everything felt unreal. The cold night air hit me so hard I started shaking worse than I had upstairs. Kayla's parents came back not long after, and her mom looked like she was going to faint when she saw us. The police searched the house and the yard. They found the sliding door open. The lock had been damaged, like someone had forced it with a flat tool. Inside the house, along the downstairs hallway wall, there were long, dirty streaks where someone had dragged their hand. And upstairs, right outside Kayla's bedroom door, they found a muddy footprint. Just one. The creepy part was what they didn't find. They didn't find anyone. Not in the house. Not in the yard. Not in the woods behind the fence. No one. An officer asked us over and over what we saw. Kayla described the person by the fence. I described the footsteps and the woman at the window. Melissa barely spoke at all. Eventually one of the officers walked over to the group of parents and said something quietly. I couldn't hear everything, but I caught enough. There had been another call that night. A few streets over. From a family who said someone had been looking in their back windows. 2 people, according to the husband. A man and a woman. The police told us it was probably a pair of trespassers trying to scare people, maybe looking for a house they thought was empty. That explanation should have made me feel better. It didn't. Because when we were finally allowed back inside, Kayla's mom went straight to the kitchen and then called out for everyone to come look. On the outside of the sliding glass door, low to the ground near the handle, there was a handprint. Not an adult hand. A child's. Small, muddy, with thin little fingers. The officer looked at it for a long time without saying anything. Kayla's dad said, "Maybe one of the girls touched it earlier." But none of us had been outside. And besides, this print was on the outside. Melissa saw it and started crying so hard she had to sit down. Her aunt came to pick her up around 3 in the morning, and when she saw the handprint through the glass, the color drained from her face. That's when she said something I still think about. Very quietly, like she didn't want the officers to hear, she said to Melissa, "I told your mother you should never go where they've already been." I heard it. Melissa heard me hear it. She looked at me, terrified, and shook her head like she was begging me not to ask. So I didn't. Nobody slept that night. Most of us got picked up before sunrise. My mom took one look at me and didn't ask questions until we got home. The police never caught anyone. As far as I know, they never identified a suspect either. But here's the part that still bothers me most. A few days later, Kayla called me and told me her parents had finally watched the footage from their backyard security camera. Only the camera wasn't pointed at the whole yard. It only covered the back steps and part of the patio. She said at 10:43 p.m., right around when we first heard the knocking, the footage showed the back steps completely empty. Then, all at once, the motion alert triggered. Not because someone walked into frame from the yard. Because a child had stepped into frame from the side of the house. Already inside the fence. Already in the backyard. The kid looked about 6 or 7, wearing light-colored pajamas, barefoot, head tilted down so their face couldn't be seen. They walked up to the glass door and just stood there. A few seconds later, from the darkness beyond the edge of the camera's view, a woman's hand reached in and rested gently on the child's shoulder. Then both of them moved out of frame. Kayla said her parents deleted the footage after showing it to police. They didn't want it in the house anymore. I asked if the police believed it was a real kid. Kayla got quiet. Then she said, "They didn't comment on that part." I asked what she meant. And she told me the last thing the officer said before leaving that night. He had watched the footage twice, then looked at Kayla's dad and asked one question. "Are you absolutely sure," he said, "that there weren't 6 girls sleeping here tonight?" The second story happened when I was 16, and it started as one of those sleepovers that nobody planned very well. It was me, my friend Brianna, her older sister Paige, and two girls from our school named Lila and Erin. Brianna's parents were out of town visiting family, so Paige was technically the one in charge, even though she was only 19 and clearly not interested in acting like anyone's babysitter. Brianna's house was small, old, and sat on a narrow street near the edge of town. Across from her house was an empty lot full of overgrown weeds and broken concrete. Behind it was an abandoned daycare building that had been closed since before we were born. That building had been the center of local rumors for years. Nothing dramatic. No haunted asylum stuff. Just the usual creepy stories people tell about places they pass all the time but never go near. Kids said they'd seen lights inside late at night. A few people claimed the front swing set moved on its own, even when there was no wind. One of the classroom windows on the second floor had a painted sun in it, and for some reason that made it worse. During the day it looked childish. At night it looked wrong. We joked about it constantly. So when Brianna suggested we spend the night taking turns looking at the daycare through binoculars from her upstairs bedroom, everyone thought it sounded hilarious. Cool, Erin said. We can literally watch ourselves get possessed. Paige rolled her eyes from the kitchen. Please find a hobby. By 9 o'clock, we had pizza boxes on the floor, soda cans everywhere, and the bedroom window cracked open just enough to let in the cold air. Brianna had dragged an old chair over to the window and set up her dad's binoculars on the sill like we were doing some serious investigation. The abandoned daycare sat dark and still across the lot, its windows black, the chain-link fence bent in places. One side door hung slightly open, though everybody said it had been like that for years. Lila looked through the binoculars first and immediately said, "Okay, I hate this." "What?" I asked. "Nothing. It just feels too close when you zoom in." I took a turn. She was right. With the binoculars, the building stopped feeling like some distant creepy shape and started looking real. Peeling paint. Empty rooms. Small chairs tipped over in one classroom. A paper cutout still taped to a door. It looked like the place had been left in a hurry and then forgotten. "What are we even hoping to see?" I asked. Erin flopped onto the bed. "A ghost. A murderer. A former preschool teacher who never mentally left." Paige came in around then carrying a bowl of popcorn. "All of you are weird." Brianna grinned. "You love us." "No," Paige said. "I tolerate you." She set the bowl down and glanced out the window toward the daycare. Her expression changed for just a second. "What?" Brianna asked. Paige shook it off. "Nothing. Just keep the window locked when I go downstairs." That caught my attention. "Why?" Paige took a second too long to answer. "Because this neighborhood gets random people walking through at night sometimes." "Like who?" Erin asked. "Drunk people. Creeps. I don't know. Just lock it." Then she left. The way she said it made the room feel less playful. Still, for the next hour we kept joking around. We took turns with the binoculars, trying to scare each other by pretending we saw movement in the windows. Erin swore she saw a face behind the painted sun window upstairs, but when the rest of us looked, there was nothing there. Around 11, Brianna suggested a game. "All right," she said. "Everyone writes down the creepiest thing they can think of, folds it up, and whoever gets the worst one has to go onto the front porch alone for 2 minutes." This was a terrible idea, which is exactly why we did it. We wrote things like "Look behind you and there's someone under the bed and the daycare door just moved." Brianna mixed them up in a cup and made us take turns pulling one. Lila got stuck with the porch dare. She complained the whole way downstairs, but Paige forced her out there while we all watched from the front window. Lila stood on the porch hugging herself and flipping us off through the glass. Then she froze. At first we thought she was messing with us. But she didn't turn around or smile. She just slowly lifted one hand and pointed across the street. Toward the daycare. We rushed to the window. From the upstairs angle, the building looked the same as before. Dark. Still. Then Aaron said, "The side door." It was moving. Not swinging wide open. Just shifting slowly inward like someone had pulled it a little farther. Lila ran back inside before her 2 minutes were up. "Did you see that?" she said, breathless. "Probably wind," Brianna said, but she didn't sound convinced. "There is no wind," Lila snapped. Paige came over to the window and stared for a while. Then she did something that changed the mood completely. She locked the front door. Not casually. Not just because it was late. She checked it twice. "Okay," Brianna said. "Now you're freaking me out." Paige turned around. "Nobody goes outside tonight." "Why are you being weird?" Brianna asked. Paige hesitated. Then she sighed and leaned against the wall. "Last month," she said, "I was home alone and heard kids laughing outside at like 1 in the morning." Nobody interrupted her. "I looked out the front window and saw 2 little kids standing in the lot across from the house. Just standing there. I figured they belonged to someone nearby, except they weren't moving." I felt that cold twist in my stomach again. "What happened?" I asked. Paige folded her arms. "I looked away for maybe 2 seconds to grab my phone, and when I looked back they were gone." "Okay," Aaron said with a nervous laugh. "That's creepy, but also maybe just kids." Paige shook her head. "I thought so too. Until I checked the porch camera." The room went silent. "There weren't 2 kids in the lot," she said. "There was 1 kid. The second one was standing at the bottom of our front steps, just out of the frame most of the time." No one said anything after that. And from somewhere outside, across the street, came a metallic clang. Like the daycare fence had been hit. Brianna whispered, "Nope." We all moved away from the window. For the next half hour, nobody brought up games or jokes. Paige turned on more lights downstairs. She even checked all the windows and made us keep our phones charged and close. At around midnight, Aaron finally said what we were all thinking. "Can we just not look outside anymore?" Paige nodded. "That's fine with me." So we tried distracting ourselves. Music. Card games. Stupid videos. It almost worked. Then Brianna got a text. She looked at the screen and frowned. "Who's this?" "Who?" I asked. She turned the phone toward us. "Unknown number." The message said, "Are you girls having fun?" We all stared at it. Aaron said, "That's not funny." "I didn't send it," Lila said immediately. "Me either." Paige took the phone. "Block the number." Before Brianna could, another message came through. "Don't shut the curtains." Nobody moved. Then another. "We like watching." Paige grabbed her own phone and said, "I'm calling the police." Brianna looked panicked. "Wait, what if it's just some guy from school messing with us?" Paige gave her a look. "And how exactly did some guy from school get your number and know there are 5 girls in this house right now?" Nobody had an answer. Paige called the non-emergency line first, probably because she didn't want to sound dramatic. She reported the texts and the suspicious activity outside. The dispatcher said they'd send a patrol car by. That should have made us feel better. It didn't. Because while Paige was still on the phone, there was a soft tapping sound from upstairs. From Brianna's bedroom window. We all heard it. Not loud. Just fingertip taps on glass. Brianna's face strained of color. No. Paige looked up slowly toward the ceiling. The tapping came again. Tap. 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 Directly above us. And that was impossible, because Brianna's room was on the second floor. Paige ended the call immediately and grabbed a knife from the kitchen. I told you not to look outside, she muttered, like she was talking more to herself than to us. We followed her halfway up the stairs before she turned around. No. Stay down here. We are not splitting up, Aaron said. So all 5 of us went up together. The hallway upstairs was dark except for the bathroom light. Brianna's room door was open. Her window was at the far end of the room, curtains half shut. No tapping now. Just silence. Paige stepped in first, holding the knife low at her side. The room looked normal. Blankets on the floor. Snacks on the desk. Binoculars still on the sill. Then Brianna gasped. On the outside of the window, drawn through the fogged glass in one long streak, was a smiley face. Fresh. Like someone had just traced it with a finger. We all backed out at once. Aaron whispered, How would someone even reach that? Paige pulled the curtain shut so hard the rod nearly came down. That was when we heard it. Children laughing. Very faint. From outside. Not from the street. From the lot across from the house. It sounded far away at first, almost like my brain was trying to tell me I imagined it. But then it came again, clearer this time. 2 voices. Maybe 3. Small, sing-song laughter. Lila started crying right away. Paige shoved all of us downstairs again and locked the front and back doors one more time. Then she turned off every light in the house except the kitchen and made us sit on the floor where nobody could see us from the windows. We stayed there listening. The laughter would stop, then start again in a different place, like it was moving around outside. At some point the police car did drive by. We saw the lights sweep over the walls through the curtains. Paige ran to the door and opened it just enough to wave them down. She talked to the officer for a minute, explained the texts, the tapping, the weird sounds. He took it seriously enough to walk the property and shine his flashlight across the lot and toward the daycare. He didn't find anything. Before leaving, he told us to call back if anyone tried to get into the house. That sentence stayed with me. If anyone tried to get into the house. Like even he thought whatever this was had not yet reached its worst point. After the patrol car left, the house somehow felt even less safe. At around 1:30 in the morning, we made this unspoken agreement not to mention the daycare anymore. Like naming it made it stronger. Paige tried to keep us calm by putting on some random sitcom in the living room. The fake laughter from the TV mixed with the real fear in the room in this horrible way that made everything feel wrong. Then Brianna got another text. Same unknown number. She didn't even want to open it. Paige made her. It said, "One of you looked back." Under that, a second message appeared. "That means we can come closer." I think that was the moment the night really turned. Paige called 911 this time, not the non-emergency line, and while she did that, Aaron suddenly stood up and pointed at the dark TV screen. At first I thought she was losing it. Then I saw what she saw. The TV had gone black during a commercial transition, and in the reflection of the living room window behind us, there was a shape standing outside on the porch. Small. Still. Human. We all turned so fast the room spun. There was a child standing just outside the front window. Maybe 7 or 8 years old. Wearing something pale. Head lowered. Hands at their sides. Motionless. Nobody screamed right away. It was too shocking. Too wrong. Paige whispered into the phone. "They're here." They're on the porch right now. The child lifted its head very slowly. I couldn't make out the face clearly through the glass and darkness, but I remember enough to know I never want to see it again. The features looked normal at first glance, but the smile was too wide. Not cartoonish. Just stretched farther than it should have been on a small face. Then another small figure stepped up beside the first one. And another. 3 of them now. All standing on the porch. All smiling. Lila made this choking noise and buried her face in my shoulder. Paige told the dispatcher officers were coming again, and that we were locking ourselves in the upstairs bathroom. That might sound stupid, but the bathroom had no windows and only one door. In that moment, it felt safer than anywhere else. We ran upstairs and packed ourselves into that tiny bathroom with our phones and the kitchen knife. Paige locked the door. Brianna started sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. From outside in the hall, nothing happened at first. Then we heard the front door open downstairs. Not forced. Opened. Slowly. Like someone had unlocked it from outside. I felt the blood drain out of my face. Paige whispered, "That's not possible." But it had happened. We all heard the hinges. Then came the sound of little footsteps in the house. Not heavy adult footsteps. Quick, light, uneven. Running. Back and forth downstairs. Followed by giggling. Right there inside the house. Erin whispered, "No, no, no." Brianna cried. The doors were locked. I believed her. I still do. The running moved through the hallway, then the kitchen, then back again. It sounded like children playing a game they found funny. Then the footsteps reached the stairs. Multiple sets. Coming up fast. Brianna screamed. Paige gripped the knife with both hands. Lila was praying under her breath. The footsteps rushed up to the second floor and scattered through the hallway. We could hear them slapping across the wood floor right outside the bathroom. Then the laughing stopped all at once. A tiny voice spoke through the door. "Can we come in?" I had never heard fear sound so complete inside a group of people. Nobody answered. The voice came again, a little sadder this time. "We're cold." Then another voice, higher and softer. She looked back first. My whole body went numb. Outside the door, something small scratched lightly along the bottom edge. Back and forth. Back and forth. Then the bathroom light went out. Pitch black. Everyone started shouting. Phones lit up one by one, filling the room with shaky white beams. And in that flashing confusion, with all of us packed together, Erin suddenly said, "Wait." Her voice was shaking worse than anyone's. "There are 6 lights." Nobody understood at first. Then I counted. Phone flashlights. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There were only 5 of us in that bathroom. Erin's voice was barely more than a whisper. "There are 6 lights." For a second, none of us understood what she meant. Then my brain caught up. 5 girls. 6 phone flashlights. The bathroom was so small that all the beams overlapped and shook against the walls and mirror. I started counting frantically, almost like if I counted wrong it would stop being real. 1 in Paige's hand. 1 in Brianna's. 1 in mine. 1 in Lila's. 1 in Erin's. And 1 more. A pale white glow coming from low near the bathtub. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Very slowly, every light in the room shifted toward the tub. The shower curtain was closed. The 6th light was coming from behind it. Brianna let out this broken little gasp. Paige stepped in front of all of us with the knife raised. "Who's there?" she shouted, though her voice cracked so hard it barely sounded like her. No answer. Just that weak white beam shining through the thin plastic curtain. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. Paige reached out with the knife hand and pinched the edge of the curtain between two fingers. For half a second she didn't move. I think some part of her already knew she didn't want to see whatever was there. Then she yanked it open. The tub was empty. No person. No child. Nothing. Just an old phone sitting upright in the bathtub, its flashlight turned on. Nobody spoke. Paige stared at it, then leaned in and picked it up carefully with her free hand. It wasn't any of ours. The phone was old, cracked at one corner, and wet like it had been sitting outside. The screen lit up the second she touched it. There was no lock screen picture. No passcode prompt. Just a black background and one text conversation already open. One message at the top. "Thank you for letting us in." Lila screamed so loud it hurt my ears. Paige nearly dropped the phone. Brianna started crying all over again, repeating, "No, no, no, no," like she was trying to cancel the whole night out loud. Then the scratching started again. Not downstairs. Not in the hallway. On the other side of the bathroom door. Quick little fingernails moving over the wood. Back and forth. Back and forth. A voice from outside said, "Did you see us now?" It sounded so close that I could picture a child with their face pressed against the door. Another voice answered from farther down the hall. "She opened the curtain." Then the first voice laughed. Paige grabbed the phone from the bathtub and shoved it into the sink like that would somehow stop it from existing. She got back on the line with 911 and this time she was openly panicking, telling them someone was inside, multiple people, maybe children, maybe not, we didn't know, just please hurry. The dispatcher kept trying to calm her down, but none of us were listening anymore because outside the bathroom door, the footsteps had started moving again. Fast. Running from one end of the hall to the other. Then stopping right in front of the door. Then running again. Like whatever was out there was getting excited. At one point something hit the door hard enough to make all of us jump. Not a full body slam. More like someone throwing their weight against it in a playful way. Then came a different sound. Slow, heavy footsteps. Adult footsteps. They came up the stairs one at a time. The running outside stopped. The giggling stopped. Everything went quiet. We all looked at each other because in some twisted way, the heavier footsteps felt worse. We had been terrified of the children, but the idea that an adult was now up there with them made the whole thing feel suddenly more deliberate. The steps moved down the hallway and stopped outside the bathroom. Nothing happened for 3 or 4 seconds. Then a man's voice said very softly, "Open the door." It was calm. Almost gentle. That made it worse. Paige backed away from the door, dragging all of us with her until we were pressed against the sink and tub. The voice came again. "You don't want them in there with you." Nobody answered. Then the doorknob turned once, slowly, testing it. Locked. The man let out a quiet breath on the other side. "Then don't answer when they ask." My skin went cold all over. After that, the heavy footsteps walked away. The little footsteps did not come back right away either. It was like the whole house had suddenly gone dead. Then, finally, from far downstairs, we heard sirens. Real ones this time. Close. Paige nearly collapsed in relief. The front of the house filled with red and blue light that flashed under the bathroom door and across the ceiling. We heard shouting outside, then the crash of someone forcing the already open front door wider. "Police!" The bathroom door almost burst open when Paige yanked it before anyone could tell us not to. We spilled out into the hallway crying, shaking, half blind in the flashing light. 2 officers came upstairs with weapons drawn and got us down the stairs fast. One of them pulled Paige aside when he saw the knife in her hand. Another walked through the living room, sweeping his flashlight over everything. The front door was wide open. Nobody else was in sight. Outside on the porch, under the police lights, the three small figures were gone. We stood huddled in the kitchen while officers searched every room, the yard, the lot, and eventually the abandoned daycare across the street. They found the side door of the daycare open wider than before. Inside, they found old furniture, mold, graffiti, and signs that people had clearly been trespassing in there over the years. But in one of the upstairs classrooms, directly across from Brianna's bedroom window, they found something that made the whole thing worse. 3 tiny chairs had been lined up facing the glass. And on the seat of the middle chair sat a pair of children's shoes, wet with fresh mud. The police asked if any of us had gone over there earlier as a joke. We all said no. Paige said she wouldn't have let us if we tried. An officer collected the strange phone from the bathroom sink in an evidence bag. He asked if anyone recognized it. No one did. When Brianna's parents finally got back into town sometime after 4 in the morning, her mother cried the second she saw how shaken we all were. Nobody slept. Nobody even pretended to. The police stayed until just before sunrise. They told us they hadn't found any suspects and that the text sent to Brianna's phone had come from a masked number that would be hard to trace quickly. That would have been the end of it. Creepy but explainable in a horrible human way, if not for one thing. When dawn came up enough to light the lot across the street, one of the officers called Paige over to the front window. The rest of us followed. In the cracked concrete of the empty lot, damp from the night air, there were footprints leading from the daycare fence toward Brianna's front porch. Small footprints. Barefoot. 3 sets. But there was also a 4th set behind them. Adult-sized. The strange part was that the larger prints never came all the way to the house. They stopped at the sidewalk, like whoever made them had stood there watching. And the small prints didn't come from the sidewalk toward the house. They began halfway across the lot. As if the children had started walking there. With no prints showing where they came from before that. I thought about the man's voice outside the bathroom door. You don't want them in there with you. One of the officers must have seen my face because he pulled the curtain on the front window shut and told us not to look anymore. Before leaving, he gave Brianna's parents a report number and said patrols would swing by more often over the next few nights. But then he hesitated and added something quieter. He said this wasn't the first complaint they'd gotten from around that block involving children seen outside late at night. He said most of those callers described the same thing. Kids asking to be let in. Brianna's dad asked if they thought it was some kind of group trying to scare people. The third story happened at a sleepover birthday party when I was 15. It took place at my friend Naomi's house, which sat at the end of a long gravel lane outside town. Her family didn't live on a farm exactly, but they had enough land that their nearest neighbor was barely visible through the trees during the day and completely invisible at night. Naomi's parents were home that night, which should have made everything safer. That was part of why our parents were fine with it. There were 6 of us sleeping over for her birthday, and her younger brother was staying at a cousin's house, so we had the basement to ourselves. The basement was finished, but only partly. There was a TV area with old couches and a mini fridge, then a wider rec room with a pool table and boxes stacked against one wall. At the far end, a narrow hallway led to a bathroom, a laundry room, and a door to the backyard that Naomi's dad used when he came in from his workshop. That back basement door was one of the first things Naomi pointed out when we got down there. My dad says never open this at night, she said casually while setting down a bowl of chips. Your parents all say the same things. my friend Cassie joked. Do they get together and decide this stuff? Naomi laughed, but not fully. No, seriously. Last winter somebody tried the handle. That got everyone's attention. Like a burglar? I asked. Her shoulders lifted. Probably. My dad saw footprints outside the next morning. Anyway, it's locked. She knocked twice on the door like that proved it. The basement had that warm, closed-in smell places get when they're cozy but a little too underground. Laundry soap, dust, old carpet, pizza. Outside it was freezing. Naomi's windows showed only darkness and our own reflections. At first it was a really fun night. Cake upstairs. Presents. Dumb dancing. Naomi's mom taking too many pictures of all of us. We came downstairs around 10:30 with blankets and snacks and plans to stay up until sunrise. There were 6 of us total, me, Naomi, Cassie, Ray, Morgan, and Ivy. Ivy had just moved into our school district a few months before. She was nice, very quiet, and the kind of person who always seemed to be listening for something other people couldn't hear. She and Naomi had become friends through art class. By 11, Naomi's parents had gone to bed upstairs, and the house got much quieter. We turned down the lights in the basement, and started telling stories while sprawled across couches and sleeping bags. Cassie was in the middle of some fake story about a masked man outside her kitchen window when Ivy interrupted her. Do you guys hear that? We all stopped. For a second, I heard nothing except the mini fridge humming. Then I heard it. A soft metallic sound. Very faint. From the far end of the basement hallway. Like someone gently trying the handle of the back door. We all stared in that direction. Naomi sat up. No. The sound came again. A slow rattle. Not violent. Just testing. Cassie laughed nervously. Okay, not funny. Which one of you got up? Nobody had. Naomi grabbed her phone and stood. I'm checking. Don't, Ivy said immediately. Naomi looked back. It's probably just the house settling. That doesn't sound like the house. She was right. It didn't. The rattle came a third time, sharper now. Naomi started down the hallway anyway, and the rest of us followed because no one wanted to sit alone in the rec room while someone checked the dark end of the basement. The hallway light flicked on with that harsh yellow glare old bulbs have. At the end of the hall sat the back door with a small square window in the upper half. Beyond it was nothing but black. Naomi got halfway down the hall and stopped. There was a shape visible through the little window. Someone was standing outside the door. We all froze. The person on the other side wasn't moving much, but we could tell they were there because the outdoor security light from somewhere above cast a weak glow around the outline. Tall. Still. Close to the glass. Morgan whispered, "Oh my God!" Naomi backed up slowly. "That's not my dad." The handle moved. Slowly. Then stopped. None of us screamed. It was that kind of fear where your body goes too tight to even make sound. Then the figure outside lifted one hand and knocked on the glass. 3 times. Soft. Naomi ran first. We all did. Back into the main basement room, tripping over sleeping bags, grabbing each other, talking too fast. Naomi called her dad. Not her phone. Called upstairs by yelling his name as loud as she could. Within seconds we heard movement on the floor above, and her dad pounding down the basement stairs. He looked half asleep and furious at being scared like that until he saw all our faces. "What happened?" "There's someone at the back door," Naomi said. He didn't question her. He grabbed the heavy flashlight from the utility shelf and went straight down the hall. We followed only far enough to watch. He snapped on the outdoor light switch beside the laundry room. The small window in the door lit up bright. Nobody was there. Her dad unlocked the door before Naomi could stop him and stepped outside onto the concrete path, swinging the flashlight over the yard and toward the tree line. Nothing. No one. When he came back in, he locked the door and tried to calm us down. "Probably some idiot cutting through the property," he said. "Saw you girls and took off." That explanation made sense. Mostly. Except Ivy still looked pale. Naomi's dad noticed. "You okay?" Ivy nodded too quickly. He told us he'd check around outside again from upstairs and then went back to bed. For a while after that, nobody wanted to be in the basement anymore. We actually talked about hauling everything back upstairs to the living room. But Naomi didn't want to wake her mom too, and after 20 minutes passed with nothing else happening, we convinced ourselves it had been one random creep who was now long gone. We put on a movie to settle down. At some point during the movie, I noticed Ivy wasn't watching. She was staring at the basement door at the top of the stairs. "You good?" I whispered. She looked at me. "Did he see the face?" "What?" "At the back door." I frowned. "The guy outside?" She shook her head. "The other face." A cold little wave moved through me. "What other face?" But Ivy just looked away and said, "Never mind." I should have pushed harder. I didn't. Around midnight, Naomi's dog started barking upstairs. Not normal excited barking either. Deep, angry, non-stop barking. Naomi muted the movie. We all listened. The barking moved across the upstairs floor, from the front of the house toward the back, then back again. Naomi texted her mom to ask if everything was okay. No reply. A minute later her dad came halfway down the basement stairs and called out, "Stay down there, girls." That was all. No explanation. He went back up. That made it worse than if he told us anything. Cassie whispered, "I hate this so much." Then we heard a loud slam somewhere upstairs. Naomi stood up. "I'm going up there." Her dad immediately shouted from above, "No!" We all stopped. There was something in his voice I had never heard from an adult before. Real fear. Naomi didn't move. A few seconds later, her mom came down the stairs holding the dog by the collar. The dog was still growling, hackles up, trying to pull away from her and get back upstairs. Naomi's mom looked stressed but controlled. "Plans changed," she said. "You girls are staying down here with us for a little while." "With you?" Naomi asked. Her mom nodded, guiding the dog over to the couch. "Your father's checking something." "What?" But her mom didn't answer. She just locked the basement stair door, which I didn't even know could lock, and sat down on the edge of the couch with the dog pressed against her leg. 5 minutes later Naomi's dad came down too. He had his shotgun. That was the moment every one of us realized this was serious. Naomi said, "Dad?" He looked at us, then at his wife. "I found muddy footprints in the kitchen," he said. Nobody moved. Her mom shut her eyes briefly like she'd been hoping that wasn't what he'd say. Naomi whispered, "Inside?" He nodded once. The back mudroom door was open. I don't think I have ever felt fear hit me so physically as I did then. My hands went numb. My mouth went dry. The adults started talking in lower voices, but we could still hear enough. Her dad had gone to check why the dog was barking and found the kitchen light on. There were muddy prints on the tile floor leading from the mudroom toward the hallway. Not a lot. Just enough to know somebody had been standing there. "Where do they go?" Naomi asked. Her dad looked at her for a second before answering. "To the basement door." No one said anything. Ivy made a tiny sound in her throat. The dog suddenly started barking again, but this time not at the stairs. At the far hallway. Toward the back basement door. All our heads turned. The hallway light was off now, so the far end was dark. From somewhere down there came a gentle knock. 3 taps. Naomi's father stood instantly, shotgun lifted. The dog was snarling. Then another knock came, this time from the laundry room door beside the hall. And another from the actual back door at the same time. 2 different directions. Too far apart for one person. Naomi's mom covered her mouth. Her father whispered, almost to himself, "Jesus Christ!" The dog lunged so hard against its collar that Naomi's mom nearly lost hold of it. Then we heard it. A child's laugh. Right outside the little back door window. Very soft. Very close. Cassie burst into tears. Morgan grabbed my hand so hard it hurt. Naomi's dad moved us all behind the couch and told us to stay down no matter what happened. Then he stepped into the hallway just enough to point the shotgun toward the back. The knocking stopped. Silence. Then came a different sound. Scratching. At the basement stair door. The one behind us. Every single person in that room whipped around. Something was scratching slowly at the wood from the upstairs side. Naomi's mom whispered, "No." Her husband kept the shotgun toward the back hall, but his eyes flicked to the stair door. Because now there were sounds in 2 places. Someone at the back basement door. And something at the top of the stairs. The scratching turned into slow taps. 3 on the stair door. 3 on the back door. Alternating. Like whoever was doing it wanted us to understand they were working together. Then a little girl's voice came from the stair side. "Let me in. He's outside." The dog went wild. Another voice, from the back hallway this time, answered in a sing-song whisper. "No, I'm not." I thought I might pass out. Naomi's mom was crying now silently, while trying to keep the dog from lunging. Her father shouted, "Get out of my house!" Everything went still for one long second. Then the basement lights went out. Total darkness. The only light left was the TV screen, which had shifted to that floating menu thing streaming services use when the show ends. It threw a weak bluish glow over the room, barely enough to make out shapes. The dog barked so hard it sounded hoarse. Somewhere in the dark hall, something moved quickly. Not a walking sound. A rush. Naomi's dad fired once. The blast in that basement was deafening. Everyone screamed. The TV menu vanished, probably from someone knocking the remote, and the room dropped even darker. Then, in the ringing silence after the shot, I heard footsteps running. Not away from the back hall. Across the basement ceiling. Above us. Like whoever had been downstairs was now upstairs. And more than one set. Naomi's dad shouted for his wife to get us into the storage room. We scrambled over blankets, and each other toward the big storage room off the rec area. Naomi's mom shoved us inside and slammed the door. That room had no windows and smelled like cardboard and paint cans. We all crouched in there shaking, listening to chaos on the other side of the door. The dog barking. Naomi's dad shouting. Something crashing upstairs. The front door alarm suddenly going off in short, shrill bursts. Then silence. A horrible, stretched out silence. Naomi whispered, "Mom?" No answer. She said it louder. Still nothing. Then, from right outside the storage room door, came her mother's voice. "Girls, it's okay. Come out." We all stared at the door. Naomi moved first, but Ivy grabbed her arm so hard Naomi gasped. "That's not your mom," Ivy whispered. Naomi looked at her like she'd gone insane. "What?" Ivy was shaking. Your mom calls you Naomi. She never says girls, it's okay. Outside, the voice came again. Calm. Pleasant. Open the door, Naomi. Every hair on my body rose. Naomi's face changed completely. That was when she knew Ivy was right. Because the voice had corrected itself. Nobody answered. Then the voice outside the door laughed. Not a huge laugh. Just one quiet breath of amusement. And after that, we heard footsteps move away. We stayed in that room until police finally arrived. Naomi's dad had managed to call 911 at some point during the chaos, though I never knew exactly when. When officers got there, they found Naomi's parents in the basement rec room with the dog, all alive, all terrified. The shot her dad fired had gone through the laundry room wall. It hadn't hit anyone. The upstairs had been searched. The yard had been searched. The property line, the shed, the workshop, even the tree line had all been searched. No one was found. But there were signs someone had been there. Fresh, muddy footprints in the kitchen. A small handprint on the outside of the basement back door glass. Deep scratches on the upstairs side of the basement stair door. And one thing that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. On the wall outside the storage room, written in mud at shoulder height, were the words, Naomi let us in. Naomi's mom broke down when she saw it. Police said it could have been one or more intruders playing a sick game. Maybe they watched the family long enough to know Naomi's nickname. Maybe they moved around the property to confuse everyone. That was the official explanation. The reason I don't fully believe it is Ivy. On the drive home the next morning, after my dad picked me up, I texted her asking how she knew the voice wasn't Naomi's mom before it used Naomi's nickname. She didn't answer until that night. Her message was only one sentence. Because the first time I saw them was at my old house, and they used my mother's voice too. I called her immediately. She didn't pick up. When she came back to school the next week, she acted like she regretted sending it. She would only tell me one more thing. That wherever her family moved, after a few months someone would start trying the back doors at night. Soft knocking. Children laughing. Voices asking to be let in. I asked why her family never told anyone. She looked at me for a long time and said, Because people start asking questions you don't have answers for. Like how they know your name before anyone says it. Naomi's family moved away before the end of that school year. And about 6 months later, I got a call from Naomi. She sounded shaken. She told me her new house had a finished basement too. Then she said she woke up that morning to her dog barking at the basement door. When her dad checked, there was mud on the floor. And written on the inside of the door, in what looked like a child's hand, were 3 words. Found you again, Naomi. The 4th story happened during a sleepover at my cousin Leah's apartment when I was 13. Compared to the other stories, it should have felt less scary because we were in a building, not an isolated house. There were neighbors. A locked main entrance. Streetlights outside. People coming and going. But I learned that night that being surrounded by other people doesn't always make you feel safer. Sometimes it just gives fear more places to hide. Leah lived with her mom on the 4th floor of an old brick apartment building in a part of town that always seemed gray, even in the daytime. The halls smelled faintly like dust, cooking oil, and old radiator heat. You could hear plumbing through the walls and elevator cables grinding somewhere in the middle of the night. Leah's mom worked an overnight shift at a hospital sometimes, and on those nights her grandmother usually stayed over. But that weekend her grandmother had the flu, so Leah's mom decided we were old enough to stay alone as long as she checked in often and the doors stayed locked. It was me, Leah, our friend Summer, and a girl from Leah's school named Danny. Danny was the kind of person who always seemed amused by everything. She liked scary stories more than anyone I knew and kept trying to convince us to play games involving mirrors, candles, and saying names you're not supposed to say out loud. Leah wasn't into that. Neither was I. "Let's just watch movies," I said. Summer agreed immediately. By 10 at night, we had the living room turned into a blanket nest with snacks all over the coffee table and a comedy on the TV because no one wanted to actually watch horror in an old apartment at midnight. Leah's apartment had a long, narrow hallway leading from the living room to the bedrooms and bathroom. Halfway down the hall was the front door. It had 3 locks, including a chain. Past the front door was a small alcove with a coat rack and a vent in the wall that always made a soft rattling sound when the heat kicked on. At around 11, Leah's mom called to check on us. "Doors locked?" she asked. "Yes." "Chain on?" "Yes." "Don't buzz anyone in." "I mean anyone." Leah laughed. "Mom, we know." But after she hung up, Danny said, "Why did she say it like that?" Leah shrugged. "Because one time a guy got into the building pretending to deliver food. That was enough to make all of us look toward the front door." Summer said, "Okay. New rule. Nobody says creepy stuff after midnight." Danny grinned. "That's exactly when creepy stuff starts." For the next hour, everything was normal. We painted each other's nails, talked about school drama, and half-watched whatever was on TV. Outside the living room window, the city looked washed out and distant. Traffic sounds floated up faintly from the street below. At midnight exactly, the buzzer rang. We all jumped. The apartment intercom was mounted on the wall beside the kitchen, and when it buzzed at that hour it sounded way too loud. Leah frowned and got up. "Maybe Mom forgot something." She hit the talk button. "Hello?" Nothing. Just a low hiss of static. "Hello?" she said again. A few seconds passed. Then a child's voice came through the speaker. "Can you let me in?" Every one of us stared at the intercom. Leah took her finger off the button like it had burned her. Summer whispered, "What the hell?" The voice came again, crackly and faint. "I'm lost." Leah backed away. "Nope." Danny actually laughed. "Probably some kid hitting random buzzers downstairs." That made sense, and for a second I clung to that explanation. Kids did stupid stuff in apartment buildings all the time. But then the voice said, "Leah?" The room went dead silent. Leah looked like she had stopped breathing. The speaker hissed again. "Please let me in, Leah." Danny's smile faded. Leah whispered, "How does it know my name?" Nobody answered. The buzzer stopped. Then, from the hallway, we heard a soft metallic jingle. The chain on the front door. Not opening. Just moving slightly, like someone on the other side had tested the door hard enough to make it tremble. We all stared down the hallway. There was no peephole in the living room, so to see the door you had to stand halfway down the hall. None of us wanted to. Summer finally whispered, "Call your mom." Leah nodded, but before she could, 3 knocks hit the front door. Slow. Gentle. I felt ice cold all over. Danny said less confidently now, "Maybe it is your mom." Leah was already dialing. Her mom picked up right away. She was still at the hospital. Still in scrubs. Still very much not outside the apartment door. Leah's voice shook while she explained what happened. Her mom told us to stay away from the door, and said she was calling the building superintendent and the police just in case. That should have made things feel more under control. Instead, the knocks came again. Same rhythm. Then a voice, muffled through the door, said, "Leah, I'm cold." Summer started crying instantly. Danny looked pale now too, but she was still trying to act rational. Maybe somebody heard her name through the intercom panel or something, Leah snapped. From inside my apartment? No one had an answer. The voice at the door spoke again, softer this time. Please. Then nothing. We stayed frozen in the living room for maybe a minute. Then Danny did the dumbest thing possible. She said, I'm just going to look through the peephole. Leah grabbed her arm. No. Danny pulled free. I'm not opening it. I'm just looking. She started down the hall before anyone could stop her. I followed because letting her go alone felt somehow worse, and Summer and Leah came too. The hallway seemed longer than it had any right to. Every step toward the door felt wrong. Danny leaned toward the peephole. For 1 second she just looked. Then she jerked back so fast she hit the wall. What? Leah whispered. Danny didn't answer right away. Her face had gone completely white. What did you see? I asked. Very slowly, Danny looked at Leah. There's no one there. Nobody moved. That's not funny, Leah said. I'm serious. The chain gave another faint jingle. We all jumped. Danny shook her head hard. No, 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 Leah whispered. But the chain moved. Then the voice came again. This time not through the front door. Through the wall vent in the alcove. Right beside us. Please let me in, Summer screamed. We ran back into the living room and slammed the hall door shut, even though it was just a normal interior door that probably wouldn't stop anything. Leah dragged a chair under the handle anyway. All of us were shaking now. Leah's mom called back and said the superintendent was on his way up with a spare key and building master key, and officers had been dispatched. Danny kept insisting she had seen no one at the peephole. Not a person standing to the side. Not a child crouched low. No one. But while she said it, she kept rubbing her arms and looking toward the hallway like she expected someone to walk out of it. Then the apartment lights flickered. Once. Twice. Stayed on. That old building noise started up again too. Pipes knocking. Heat vent rattling. Elevator cables grinding somewhere in the walls. Every sound felt like part of it now. About 5 minutes later, someone knocked on the door again. Louder this time. Then a man's voice called from the hallway outside. Superintendent! Open up! We all looked at each other. Relief hit first. Then doubt. Leah called her mom again and asked if the superintendent had arrived. Her mom said yes, he should be there any second. That seemed to match. So Leah started toward the hall door. Danny grabbed her. No. Why? Danny swallowed hard. Because if he has the master key, why is he asking us to open it? Leah stopped. That thought landed like a brick in the room. Outside, the man knocked again. Leah? It's Mr. Corbin. Your mother called me. Leah whispered. That is the superintendent's name. Summer cried. Don't open it. The man's voice got more impatient. Open the door now. Then, from the apartment intercom in the kitchen, the buzzer sounded again. All of us nearly jumped out of our skin. Leah stared at it. What? If the superintendent was already at our apartment door, nobody should have been buzzing from downstairs. She went to the intercom and hit the talk button with shaking fingers. A familiar adult voice came through. Leah, it's Mr. Corbin downstairs. Police are here with me. Do not open the apartment door for anybody. Every hair on my arm stood up. In the hallway outside the apartment, the man knocked once more. Harder. Then he said in the exact same voice from before. Open the door now. Summer made this choking sound and backed into the couch. Leah shouted through the hall door. Who are you? Silence. Then a small voice from the other side answered. You looked. I thought Danny might faint. Because she had looked through the peephole. The chain rattled violently then, like someone had grabbed the outer knob and shaken the whole door. We all screamed. Leah stayed on the intercom while the real superintendent and the officers came up. We heard footsteps in the hall, adult voices, then a lot of shouting all at once. The chain stopped moving. There was a loud bang against the apartment door, then another, and then the officers were pounding and identifying themselves. Leah moved the chair and unlocked the hall door but kept away from the front until the police themselves unlocked and opened it. 3 officers came in fast. The hallway outside was empty. No man. No child. No one. Mr. Corbin, the real superintendent, stood behind them looking terrified. They checked the whole floor. Stairwells. Elevator. Roof access. Laundry room downstairs. No one. But one officer called us over to the front door after a minute. On the outside of the door, at child height, were greasy little fingerprints around the mail slot. And on the inside, on the metal chain lock, there was a smear like someone had pressed a dirty palm against it. That shouldn't have been possible from outside. The police assumed somebody in the building had been harassing tenants, and somehow messing with the intercom and vents. Again, that was the official explanation. It held together less and less as the night went on. The officers stayed in the apartment for almost an hour. Leah's mom came home early. We all calmed down a little. Then one of the officers asked to check the vent in the alcove, since that was where we'd heard the voice. Mr. Corbin unscrewed the metal grate with a shaking hand. Inside the vent shaft, just a few inches back, was a small stuffed rabbit. Old. Gray with dust. One button eye missing. Leah stared at it and whispered, "That was mine." Her mom looked at her. "What?" Leah didn't take her eyes off it. "I lost that when I was 6. The apartment went very quiet. They lived in a different building when Leah was 6. Her mom said that immediately. She said it twice. But Leah was already crying because she was certain. There was a little pink thread around one ear that she remembered tying herself years ago. Mr. Corbin reached in and carefully pulled it out. Tucked underneath it was a folded piece of yellowed paper. One officer unfolded it. It looked like a page torn from a child's notebook. On it, in shaky pencil, were 4 words. "You let me in." No one at that point had anything useful left to say. I slept at my aunt's house for the next 2 nights because there was no chance I was staying there again. Leah and her mom actually moved apartments a month later, though they stayed in the same building because it was all they could afford. A week after the sleepover, Leah told me something she hadn't told the police. When Danny looked through the peephole and said no one was there, that wasn't the full truth. She admitted it after everyone had gone home. What she really saw, according to Leah, was an empty hallway at first. And then, in the peephole reflection itself, not in the hallway, she saw a little girl standing behind her. That's why she stumbled back from the door. That's why she kept rubbing her arms after. I asked Leah why Danny didn't just tell us that right away. Leah said Danny told her she was afraid if she said it out loud, the girl would know she'd been seen. I laughed nervously when Leah told me that. I wanted it to sound ridiculous. Then Leah said one last thing. After the police left that night, her mom checked the missed calls on her phone from the hospital. There were 3 silent voicemails from the exact time the knocking started. Each voicemail was only a few seconds long. No speaking. No background noise. Just the faint sound of a child breathing. And at the very end of the 3rd one, a whisper. Not to Leah. To her mother. "Thanks for leaving them alone." The fifth story happened at what was supposed to be the best sleepover of that entire year. It was during summer break, and my friend Aubrey's parents had rented a lake house for a long weekend. The plan was simple: swimming during the day, junk food at night, scary stories, no school, no adults bothering us except to tell us to keep the noise down. The house sat on the edge of a small private lake about an hour outside town. It was bigger than any of our houses, with a wide wooden deck on the back, a sloping yard down to the water, and a dock that stretched out over the lake into black open water. By day it was beautiful. By night it felt wrong. There were 7 of us staying over: me, Aubrey, my friend Kenzie, twins named Mara and Mia, a quiet girl named Elise, and Aubrey's cousin Harper, who was a year older than the rest of us. Aubrey's parents were there too, sleeping upstairs, so technically this wasn't one of those home alone sleepovers. But after midnight they might as well have been miles away. The downstairs of that lake house felt like its own world. Elise was the only one who seemed nervous from the start. Not about the woods. Not about the dark. About the lake. The first afternoon, while the rest of us were swimming near the dock, Elise stayed in the shallow water and kept glancing farther out. "What's wrong with you?" Kenzie joked. Elise shrugged. "I just don't like lakes at night." "Good thing it's not night." She didn't smile. That evening, after dinner, Aubrey's dad told us one rule very clearly. "No one goes on the dock after dark." Mara grinned. "Because of a lake monster?" "Because it's slippery and because I said so," he answered. But then, just before turning away, he added, "And if you hear someone in the water, wake me up first." That got all our attention. Harper laughed. "What does that mean?" He shrugged like he regretted saying it. "People mess around out here sometimes in boats. Just don't investigate anything yourselves." At the time that sounded normal enough. By 10:30, the adults had gone upstairs and the 7 of us had turned the downstairs family room into our sleeping area. There were big windows facing the deck and lake, but Aubrey closed the curtains once the sky got fully dark. Even through the curtains, you could feel the lake out there. Still. Black. Wide. We told stories, played card games, and argued over which snacks belonged to who. Around midnight, Harper dared us to sneak onto the deck with flashlights and see who could stay out there the longest. Aubrey said no immediately. "Dad literally told us not to." Harper rolled her eyes. "The deck isn't the dock." That technicality was enough for everyone else, so we did it. We slid open the back door and stepped onto the deck in a group, shining our flashlights over the yard, dock, and water. The air smelled like wet wood and lake water and pine trees. Bugs buzzed near the deck light. Beyond the dock, the surface of the lake looked flat as glass. For a few minutes it was fun. We whispered and scared each other, and shined our lights into the trees. Then Elise pointed toward the dock. "There's someone down there!" All our beams swung at once. At the very end of the dock stood a person. Just a silhouette against the water. Tall. Still. Facing the house. No one had heard footsteps on the boards. No one had seen them walk there. Kenzie said, "Is that your dad?" Aubrey immediately said, "No." The figure didn't move. Aubrey shouted, "Hello?" No answer. Mia whispered, "Go get your parents." But Harper, because she always had to prove she wasn't scared, took a few steps off the deck toward the yard and called out louder, "Hey! Who are you?" The figure at the end of the dock tilted its head. That tiny motion scared me more than if it had rushed at us. Aubrey said sharply, "Inside. Now." We backed into the house, shut the sliding door, and locked it. Aubrey ran upstairs to get her parents. By the time they came down with flashlights, the dock was empty. Aubrey's dad went outside anyway and checked the yard while her mom stayed with us. A few minutes later he came back and said there was nobody there. Harper tried to laugh it off. Probably some random fisherman. At the exact moment she said that, there was a knock on the glass back door. All 7 of us screamed. Aubrey's mother spun around. On the other side of the glass, standing under the deck light, was a little girl. Maybe 8 years old. Wet hair hanging down. Bare feet. A pale nightgown stuck to her skin. She looked freezing. My first thought wasn't supernatural, or anything like that. It was that some kid had fallen into the lake, or gotten lost from another cabin. Aubrey's mom stepped toward the door instantly. Elise shouted, "Don't open it!" Everyone turned to look at her. She looked terrified in a way I hadn't seen before. "Don't," she repeated. "Please!" Aubrey's dad was already at the door, peering through the glass. "Honey, there's a child out there." The girl lifted one hand and pressed it gently against the glass. She didn't speak. Aubrey's mom said, "I'm calling 911. Good. That felt right. Safe. Controlled. But Aubrey's dad still looked torn. You could see the decent human reaction fighting with caution in real time. He unlocked the inner latch. Elise actually ran forward and grabbed his arm. "No!" Aubrey shouted at her. "What is wrong with you?" Elise was crying now. "If she asks to come in, don't answer." Nobody understood what she meant. The little girl outside finally spoke. Very softly. "Can I come in?" I think every person in that room felt the same cold shock at the same time. Aubrey's dad stepped away from the door. He looked at Elise. "Why would you say that?" Elise shook her head hard, tears running down her face. "Because my brother said yes." The whole room went silent. But before anybody could ask what that meant, a loud splash came from the lake. Not near the shore. Out by the dock. Aubrey's dad turned toward the sound. There, at the end of the dock again, was the tall figure. Still standing in the dark. The little girl outside the door smiled. Not big. Just enough to show she knew we saw both of them. Aubrey's mother backed away from the glass with the phone already to her ear. The girl lowered her hand and slowly walked sideways out of view beyond the edge of the deck. Aubrey's dad locked the door again. For the next 20 minutes, nobody moved more than necessary. Aubrey's parents kept us all together in the family room while they spoke to the 911 dispatcher. We told them about the person on the dock and the little girl at the door. Aubrey's dad kept checking the windows without pulling the curtains aside too far. When deputies finally arrived, they searched the deck, the yard, the shoreline, and even had a spotlight swept over part of the lake. No boat. No swimmer. No child. No one on the neighboring properties had reported a missing girl. Deputies did find wet footprints on the deck though. Small bare footprints. They started at the back door. And instead of leading away from it, they led toward it and stopped. As if someone had walked up to the glass and then vanished. One deputy asked if one of us girls had gone out there barefoot as a prank. Nobody had. While the adults were talking outside with deputies, Elise finally told us why she'd reacted like that. When she was younger, her family had rented a cabin on another lake. Late one night, her older brother heard crying outside and found a little girl standing by the porch asking to be let in. Their father opened the door. The girl walked in. And according to Elise, everything in the house changed after that. At first it sounded like grief talking. Like maybe her brother had told her a made-up story to explain something horrible. But Elise swore it was true. She said her father started hearing knocking from empty rooms. Her mother kept seeing a tall man standing down by the water. And a week later, her brother disappeared. Officially, he drowned. But Elise said they never found his body. Nobody knew what to say to that. Aubrey's mom heard enough of it that she insisted all of us sleep upstairs together after the deputies left. Mattresses were dragged into the master bedroom floor. Every window was locked. Every curtain shut. At around 3 in the morning, just when fear had started to fade into exhausted silence, we heard a slow creak from downstairs. One board. Then another. Footsteps on the back deck. Aubrey's dad was awake instantly. He held a finger to his lips and went to the bedroom window just enough to peek through the curtain. His face changed. "What is it?" Aubrey's mom whispered. He didn't answer for a second. Then he said, "The dock." Against every instinct, some of us looked anyway through the narrow gap. There were people standing on the dock now. Not one. Not two. Several. Small figures and one taller one behind them. All facing the house. Still as fence posts. Aubrey's mom shut the curtain immediately and told everyone not to look anymore. Then came the knocking. Not on the front door. Not even the back door. On the downstairs windows. Different windows. Different sides of the house. Like they were all the way around it. Tap. 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 Soft little knocks, moving from one pane to the next. Aubrey's youngest-sounding friend, Mia, started sobbing into Mara's shoulder. Elise sat with her knees to her chest and eyes shut tight, whispering, "Don't answer, don't answer, don't answer." One of the knocks came from directly below the upstairs bedroom window. Then a little girl's voice drifted up from outside. "Can we get warm?" Aubrey's father called 911 again, while her mother kept all of us back from the windows. The dispatcher stayed on the line. The knocking kept moving. At some point it stopped being taps and became gentle scratching on the siding below the window, like tiny nails dragging across the house. Then, from downstairs in the kitchen, we heard the back door handle turn. Once. Twice. Then a heavier sound. A shoulder hitting the glass. Aubrey's dad swore under his breath and grabbed the heavy flashlight from the bedside table like it was a weapon. The back door boomed again. Everyone screamed. And after that, from somewhere near the staircase below us, came a child's laugh. Inside the house. I don't know how to explain the feeling that went through that room. It was like every person's body stopped belonging to them for a second. Aubrey's dad whispered, "Stay here." He stepped into the upstairs hall with the flashlight. Aubrey's mom tried to stop him, but he was already gone. We heard him shout downstairs. Then silence. Then his footsteps moving toward the kitchen. Then a crash. Then another shout. Aubrey's mom bolted after him. We all followed to the top of the stairs because nobody wanted to be left alone. Downstairs, the family room was dark except for moonlight leaking around the curtains. The kitchen light was on. Aubrey's dad stood near the back door staring at the floor. The glass wasn't broken. The door was still locked. But the wet footprints were there again. Small barefoot ones. Leading away from the back door this time. Across the kitchen. Into the hallway. And toward the downstairs bathroom. Aubrey's dad went to the bathroom door and put one hand on the knob. I will never forget the look on Elise's face in that moment. She wasn't curious. She wasn't confused. She looked like she already knew what was on the other side. Aubrey's dad flung the bathroom door open. Nobody was inside. Just wet tile. Dripping water in the sink. And something written in the steam on the mirror. He said yes. Aubrey's mother started crying. The deputies came back, this time with more people. They searched every inch of that house and the property around it until sunrise. Again, they found no intruders. but they did find signs. Mud at the edge of the dock, though no boat had come in. Fresh scratches on the outside of several windows. The wet footprints in the kitchen and bathroom. And one thing out by the shore that nobody told us girls about until later. Aubrey found out from overhearing her parents the next week. There had been children's footprints at the waterline. Several sets. They led out of the lake and up toward the house. None led back in. You would think that would be the end of the story. Creepy, awful, unforgettable. But it got worse 1 year later. Aubrey's family didn't go back to that lake house, obviously. None of us did. Then the next summer, Aubrey's dad got a call from the rental owner. The owner had been cleaning out an old locked storage space under the house and found a tin box with papers, photos, and letters left by previous owners. He called because one of the photos showed the exact back deck and dock from decades earlier, with the family standing on it. 2 parents. 3 children. And in the background, at the edge of the water, there was a little girl in a pale dress no one in the family could identify. On the back of the photo someone had written a date and a sentence. The date was from over 30 years ago. The sentence said, "This was the first night she asked?" Aubrey's dad tried to treat it like some old ghost story somebody had made up. Then the owner found more papers. One was a newspaper clipping about a child who disappeared from the lake in the early 1980s. Another was about 2 siblings missing from a nearby cabin years later. Then another. Different years. Same lake. And in the margin of one article, written by hand, were the words, "They always come back with more." Aubrey told me all of this over the phone because she still couldn't say the lake's name out loud without crying. I asked her if her parents kept the photo. She said no. Her dad burned the whole box in a metal barrel behind their garage. I wanted that to be the end. I really did. But about 2 months after she told me that, I got a message from Elise. I hadn't heard from her in a while. It was just one picture. A bathroom mirror. Fogged from steam. Written across it in a child's finger. "You asked who we were?" Under the picture she wrote one sentence. I never asked that out loud at the lake house. I only thought it. That was the last message I ever got from Elise. She didn't come back to school that fall. According to Aubrey, her family moved suddenly at the end of the summer. No forwarding address. No goodbye. Nothing. And every now and then, especially in summer, I still think about something Aubrey's dad said when we first arrived at that lake house. "If you hear someone in the water, wake me up first. Not if you see someone. If you hear someone." Like he already knew the worst thing about that place wasn't what you saw standing on the dock. It was what might already be in the lake, waiting for somebody inside the house to answer.